Welcome to Pop-O-Holics, the show about hot takes hotter than hot, tasty pancakes. I'm your host, Christian Katie, and we are back from our little vacation. I'm joined by my two favorite best friends,
Chris Conkling
and Brian Dupree.
And boys, we are kind of celebrating coming out of this crazy, wacky pandemic with a rare live, in-person record, which is super fun.
Fully vaxxed and ready to hang.
Vaxxed and maxed.
Maxed vaxxed and licking each other's ass.
There you go.
That's off the pod, though. You pay extra for that.
Gross.
Well, let's take a break.
Yeah, this is like a beers with bros without the beers.
I mean, I got a White Claw.
It's the same thing as a beer.
You know Katie's coming over when he brings the claws, bro.
Christian brought a lunchbox just for a singular White Claw.
That's the Katie clause.
Do you want a White Claw?
Do you have more than one in the lunchbox?
Do you want one?
I probably can't drink it.
Ryan?
I'm all right for now. Thank you.
Okay, all right. I'll single claw.
I appreciate the offer, though. That's very, very kind of you.
Well, you've stumbled upon a weekly upload. What do we do in these? Well, we usually have a recorded news section that goes on YouTube. This one's going to be exclusive for listeners. So hopefully, if you're watching on the YouTubes, you've already subscribed to the audio version because this will be audio only based on how we're recording. We just didn't have a really good setup for the video. But we got some cool news items. Obviously, Black Widow came out, and that's going to be our upcoming main topic episode where we review that film. So check out that on Wednesday. But we're going to talk about how it's breaking box office records. We're also going to talk about a bunch of upcoming movies and TV shows to catch you guys up. And then go into what we've been consuming. Chris has seen the latest Demon Slayer. It looks like they made a movie.
They did.
That's exciting because I was a big fan of that series. Brian and I saw at the Enzian, we saw A Band Apart, which is the French title for it. What's the actual?
Band of Outsiders.
A Band of Outsiders is the
English.
American. Yeah. We saw that at a local theater here in Orlando, so we'll be talking about that. He also saw No Sudden Move on HBO Max. I finally caught up and saw Adaptation, and I've been watching Mythic Quest. And then we're going to have some community feedback. But before we dive into that, have you guys been? I know we've been off for a week. You guys been up to anything cool, anything fun?
Shameless Pop-O-Holics host plug here. Chris and I were both involved in helping Christian shoot a music video.
Yeah,
this
it was
weekend.
a blast.
I'm on vacation. I came up to Orlando to hang with the guys, and I gotta say, I had a ton of fun doing this, and I hope it's not the last time. And I know you don't like to talk about stuff that's not out, Christian, but
we did shoot
But here
it.
I am talking about it anyway.
We did shoot it, so there is footage that exists.
There's footage that exists. It is one of 5 that we're trying to get done. That's 3 done. 3 that are in post right now. So a lot of exciting stuff coming out with the Midnight Satire. That's a shameless plug there for that. But yeah, it was a ton of fun. I asked you guys to help out, and you guys were gracious enough to lend me your bodies and your acting abilities. Brian knocked it out of the park.
Definitely.
Chris,
I did my job.
he had to go get a medical degree to help out with that.
I did. It was a lot of work, but I was able to squeeze it into about a month. And I'm a
Dr.
doctor now.
Conkling. Yeah,
I'm
congratulations.
A doctor. Yeah.
Doc Conk.
Just for this one role. You know, I didn't
Conk.
want Doc Conk.
Rolls right off the tongue.
I didn't want to say,
That's your website, right? Chris Doc Conk.
Chris.Conk. Doc Conk. I didn't want to say that I just play a doctor on TV. I wanted to be able to say I am a doctor. I do not recommend anybody getting any type of doctor-type procedures through me, though. I'm not very good.
He's a little handsy, from what I can tell.
Yeah, lose my chance. But look forward to that in the future. That's a few months out, but we'll have some more announcements around that through the music that's coming out. I went to Lake of the Ozarks for a week and hung out with
Jason Bateman.
Yeah, I saw Jason Bateman. We hung out.
Made good with the locals, from what I understand.
Yeah.
They can't wait to have you back.
They are so excited for me to come back to their town. No, it's funny because that place is kind of blown up because of the Netflix thing. That's been kind of the buzz. And there's a lot of famous people that are buying property out there. I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful lake. It's an interesting, very homogenous group of people that live there. But it was beautiful weather. And the people that hosted me were very, very kind. And they were the sweetest. But what was interesting is we actually got to go past there was like a pump station / restaurant that inspired the Ozark show on Netflix. So I got to see
wow.
that. And
That's
I
pretty
actually got
cool.
a photograph of that. So that was cool. But it does not look like the show is like depressingly aggressively blue, and it like creates this overbearing weight. The color temperature is so cool. and it was crazy because it's like just a beautiful lake. It's like.
So I didn't realize the sun existed here.
Yeah, the sun actually comes out here. That show's full of shit. But it's funny because that was like one of my big complaints with the show was like it's a little too strong. It was like Matrix level color tinting going on.
And it's already such beautiful territory. It's like, why you?
Probably because they shot it in Georgia. Yeah.
Fair enough.
So anyway, that was really interesting. Had a lot of fun, but happy to be back on the pod. So let's delay no further. Let's jump into it with Brian's Wacky News Corner.
Starting on wacky, starting on wacky. Starting on wacky, starting on wacky. Welcome back, loyal listeners. So we talked recently, when we covered F9, we talked about how it had broken pandemic records for opening weekends with about a $70 million opening. It's Saturday that we're recording today, but Black Widow is on track to beat this opening with almost $90 million this weekend. On Friday alone, it made nearly $40 million, and it sounds like there may be some issues releasing some places abroad, but this movie seems to be doing really well opening weekend, even given the fact that it's being released at the $30 price point on Disney Plus as well. So at least at this point, we'll see if it has legs into the future, but this seems to be a pretty strong point for not taking away from the theatrical gross.
Yeah, this is great news for the movie-going experience because it shows, the trend that we've been on with like Godzilla vs. Kong and F9 and now Black Widow. The trend is an upward trend, meaning that people are indeed, hopefully getting vaccinated, but also returning to movie theaters, which is very, very exciting. I've now seen 2 movies since I've been vaccinated in cinemas, which both have been great experiences. Both have been with you guys, which was really fun.
Both about family.
Both about family.
Oh, yes. One
One of which I definitely liked more than the other, but we'll get into that in this week's main topic on Wednesday. But yeah. That's very exciting news that Black Widow's on track to possibly make $90 million in its opening weekend. I would be absolutely thrilled if it was able to crack $100 million in the opening weekend. I don't know if it's going to quite get there just because, theaters still aren't fully open. I know AMC is rolling out or getting rid of their social distancing policy, so we'll see what happens. But, I was thinking about this, guys, and this is probably very obvious to you, but being a fan of the Marvel movies, it's kind of like being a fan of a sports team because when a Marvel movie does well, revenue-wise, it's kind of like having your sports team
Can
win.
I clarify? In this metaphor, they're the Patriots.
Yes, 100%.
It's like being a Patriots or a New York Yankees fan.
Exactly,
And
yeah.
no one wants to hear about it.
Right.
Everybody
Except for the people who are fans of the team.
which is the
Like
majority
you,
of the
loyal
United States.
listeners.
Right. But needless to say, I'm happy that Black Widow is making more money than F9. Bottom line. My team's winning, guys.
Yeah, Disney's always winning. Disney never loses. If F9, if the Fast series ever becomes more popular, they're just going to buy it. So
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good point. They
That
probably
would
would.
That would be insane. I don't know if I am ready
Maybe
for that.
Disney doesn't even have that cash.
wait
on hand.
until you see the costume they built for Vin Diesel.
So yeah, we'll be talking about Black Widow on Wednesday, so definitely tune in for that. Check that out and come back and see us. But yeah, Black Widow on track to do solid numbers so far. The next piece of news, we've talked about this in the past. There is a new animated series called What If coming to Disney Plus, sticking on the Marvel train. This is an anthology series originally created by A.C. Bradley. Bradley is the head writer, and it's directed by Brian Andrews. And the concept of this show is exploring what would happen if major moments from the films of the MCU occurred differently. So the initial trailer just dropped for this, and I'm probably going to pass off to Chris because I watched this and there was a lot of cool things, but I was very unaware of a lot of what was actually being shown. We're getting a new version of the Avengers, different people becoming different superheroes. But with that being said, a lot of original voice actors from the non-animated MCU are coming back for this. So this looks like it could be really interesting.
Yeah, based on what I just said a moment ago about being on the Marvel team, I'm very excited to see this show come out. This was the very first trailer very first full trailer that we've gotten that actually shows us some story elements of what's going to be happening in the series.
Right.
yes, this is an animated series, but based on what we know about what's happening in the MCU right now with all this, the multiverse shenanigans that are potentially on the horizon, after this trailer, it kind of makes me question if this show, even though it's animated, might have some impact on what's actually happening in canonical MCU.
Okay, have they said if this is going to be canon or not, or if it's set in multiverses?
They haven't
made it clear.
No, I haven't heard anybody specifically state that, but I am interested to find out if that is the case. Because in the trailer, we're getting really cool scenes of like Tony Stark being in Iraq in Iron Man 1, but Killmonger also being there and like saving his life at the beginning of the trailer.
Yep.
There are a lot of instances in which we are seeing Captain Carter, which is Peggy Carter. She got the super soldier serum. And then we also know about Steve, who hasn't gotten the serum, but is now inside this like Iron Man mech thing that's called the Hydra Smasher, I think is what it's called.
Okay.
But like, I'm super excited. We've seen glimpses of Gamora and Thanos armor. Like, what the heck does that mean? But all in all, if you're a fan of the MCU franchise, which I'm sure a lot of you probably are if you listen to this show, it'll be fun turning a lot of these story beats on their head. I'm a big fan of Elseworld stories because they're usually so contained and creators can really do whatever they want. So yeah, this should be an exciting show. Christian, are you going to watch this show? I know you typically aren't a huge fan of animation.
This is the one that looks like Beast Wars, right?
Yeah, this is the one you said it looks like Beast Wars.
Very exciting. Well, anything that looks like Beast Wars,
sold.
I'm down. Sold. Sign me up. Yeah, it sounds like an interesting concept. It obviously depends on execution with all this stuff. But again, there's really not a whole lot of misses Marvel has had. Misses that Marvel has had. Mm-hmm. You guys even poo-pooed MODOK, and I only watched like the first couple episodes. I thought it was hilarious. I thought it reminded me of Robot Chicken. And you guys were like, oh, it's like I'm not really connecting with it. And for my money, it's like a Robot Chicken episode.
Good. That's good to hear. I'm glad.
Yeah. So I enjoyed that quite a bit, and that's an anime. Now I haven't gone back. There's not a lot of like lore stuff to keep you invested because it's not like it's connected to everything else. No. And it's not like a very thrilling narrative. But I think there's a world in which I might watch it, depending. But it just really depends on what the tone is, right? If it's solely like kids, more focused on teen kid stuff, it's probably not going to be up my alley.
I think there will be some darker stories based on a little bit about what I know from behind the scenes and some things that have leaked, especially involving Doctor Strange, which I'm kind of excited to see. We might be seeing a little bit darker version of Doctor Strange, maybe a little more morbid. I think it's also worth noting that this is going to be Chadwick Boseman's last performance as T'Challa. Sure. They were able to get Chadwick Boseman back to play the character before his tragic passing. Brian did mention that they're pulling a lot of people back into the show from the MCU who've played these characters. However, the list of people not coming back is shorter, so I'm just going to say who isn't coming back. We're not getting Robert Downey Jr. back as Iron Man. They had to get a stand-in. We're not getting Chris Evans back as Captain America. Again, they had to get another stand-in. Who else? I believe those are like the two major ones that didn't come back, but everyone else was pretty open to reprising their roles, even in animated form.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, there's plenty of people that can do a good RDJ impression.
Yeah, I mean, you hear Tony Stark talk in the trailer. The impression's pretty good.
Yeah.
So that's What If. That's going to be coming to Disney Plus starting on August 11th, and it'll be 10 episodes releasing weekly, presumably on Wednesdays, since Disney Plus has been changing their release schedule. And I'm just reading this now. Apparently, a second season is already known to be happening, which will also be 10 episodes. So that's cool news as well. Hopefully, it works.
This is an idea that they could just run with forever if they wanted to. So that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, so that's What If. The trailer is out now, so definitely check that out. Moving into some stuff that's coming out this week, starting with TV, we've got Wellington Paranormal that's premiering on the CW yesterday at this point, Sunday the 11th, and it will be on HBO Max starting on the 12th. So this is a spin-off show of the 2014 mockumentary What We Do in the Shadows, which we are all big fans of here, as well as the TV show that the American TV show that spin-off from that. This is originally released in New Zealand starting in 2018, and fans of this series have been clamoring for a way to watch this in the US for a while now, since it was known. So this follows a group of police investigators as they track supernatural events in New Zealand, and their officers Minogue and O'Leary. And yeah, if you know about What We Do in the Shadows, this is very much kind of taking the piss out of the documentary style and very funny, while also delving into a lot of interesting supernatural stuff in my experience. Just fun lore, cool takes on what these sorts of creatures are. I don't want to say too much about what I know about the shows.
Right.
But yeah, I am definitely going to be checking this one out, and it is out today on HBO Max.
Yeah, Brian, this is also a must-watch for me. I've spoken at great length about how much my wife and I love the movie What We Do in the Shadows and the television show. When I talked about season 2 of What We Do in the Shadows, I mentioned that it really opened up the world to other paranormal activities and creatures outside of solely vampires.
Right.
And this show is expanding on that even more, like you said, Brian. And it just looks so funny. The two police officers in the show, did you mention this when you were talking about it just now? But they are in What We Do in the Shadows, the film. So these are known characters from the movie. They are, at least in the film, they were a dry, like kind of a straight man to all the vampires in the film. And I think that's such a funny dynamic. You're going to have these two very like straight-laced individuals surrounding themselves by all these ridiculous paranormal incidents. And I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, so that is Wellington Paranormal that will be out as of today. I think it's coming out weekly as well as it premieres on the CW. The next TV show that'll be out this week is called McCartney 321. So this is coming to Hulu on Friday, and I am ridiculously excited for this show. I only found out about it in the last couple weeks, but this is framed around an intimate discussion between Paul McCartney and Rick Rubin, who I'm a big fan of. I know last year at some point I talked about the documentary that Rick Rubin did about the studio that he owns called Shangri-La. He is an endlessly interesting character who has been integrally involved in the music industry for decades now, worked in every genre you can imagine, and what do we need to say about Paul McCartney? He's
legend.
Yeah, just ubiquitously known, one of the Beatles. This is going to be 6 episodes, and I would listen to these guys talk about anything. You know, it's like these two guys, why not? And with this much content, I will definitely be diving into this week. How do you feel about McCartney 321?
Oh, I'm excited for this project as well. I know I say that a lot, loyal listeners. You know, I'm excited, dude. But I think for the most part, I'm just a genuinely positive and excitable person when it comes to media, at least some media.
But this is a Beatle.
It's a Beatles documentary. How are you not going to be excited about something like this? And any insight into, you know, the minds of the Beatles is welcomed content for me. Christian, are you excited for this documentary?
Yeah, if you've seen any conversation that Rick Rubin's had with anybody, he's just such a fascinating dude.
Yeah.
Most laid back, but brilliant as well.
He knows how to like relax artists. Like I saw him talking to, who was it? Kendrick Lamar. And you know, he's so able to easily get artists comfortable and get them to talk about their process in a way that doesn't feel like a gotcha thing or like trying to. It's all about the music and
right.
the art form and what motivates them and where they get their inspirations from and stuff. So getting two legends in the music industry to talk is definitely something that I don't want to miss. It's very cool.
Yes, that's McCartney 321. That'll be on Hulu this Friday. Moving into some movies, coming out this Wednesday, we've got Gunpowder Milkshake coming to Netflix. So this movie, you watch the trailer and it's hard to not immediately think of John Wick or this style of someone you love is stolen, you got to get him back. The summary of this movie is: to protect an 8-year-old girl, a dangerous assassin reunites with her mother and her lethal associates to take down a ruthless crime syndicate and its army of henchmen. This stars Karen Gillan, and her daughter is played by Freya Allen. This sort of movie I'm just kind of in for. We're watching Black Widow this month. We've kind of been discussing movies that are in the same vein, and I think this fits within, we were talking a bit off mic about this, but this very much fits in that same realm of female-led action thrillers, and this movie looks like it could be a lot of fun. I'm not super familiar with Karen Gillan outside of the Jumanji movies, but I love the Jumanji movies.
And Doctor Who.
Doctor Who, I'm not as familiar, but I have seen a couple episodes of her there. But yeah, Gunpowder Milkshake coming out this Wednesday looks like a lot of fun. Do you guys?
I love the name. I'm here for the ad-lib name.
Yeah.
No, it's a great name. I think based on the trailer, it looks really colorful. And like you said, Brian, right. Karen Gillan is just playing like a badass woman, like taking revenge on a crime syndicate. It has, when I watched the trailer, it gave me a lot of like Kill Bill vibes.
Oh, sure.
So yeah, this looks really cool.
Dynamite root beer float.
It's with a name like
Firecracker
that.
ice cream.
It may not be able to live up to a name like that, but I'm hoping it does.
I imagine that the script was thrown on some producer's desk over at Netflix.
Didn't even read it.
And it just said Dynamite Milkshake or whatever. What is it?
Gunpowder
It just said
Milkshake.
Gunpowder Milkshake. And they said, sold.
Greenlit.
How much money? Oh, that's a little too much. We cut that in half. But it's greenlit.
Full creative control. So yeah, that's Gunpowder Milkshake. I'm sure at least one of us will be watching that soon and talking about it. That'll be out on,
It'll be
on Wednesday. Yeah, it'll probably be me, let's be honest. Moving on to a bunch of movies that are coming out this Friday. Finally, the long-awaited. I know you guys have been clamoring for.
Welcome to the Space Jam. All right.
The
Here's your
Monstars.
chance, do your dance.
Just stop. We're going to get sued.
It wasn't 15 seconds. We're good. But Space Jam: A New Legacy is coming out this Friday. So this is directed by Malcolm D. Lee. It is.
Chris is shaking his head. You were just saying how generally positive and exciting.
Most time.
Scoffing at this completely.
I love the first Space Jam.
I, too, loved the first Space Jam. When it came out originally and I was a child,
Qualifiers.
I have
That's okay.
watched
another
it since
generation.
then, and it doesn't hold up as well, but there are still some nostalgic feelings.
It's got
for that original
it's
film.
got A+ Bill Murray in it. Bill Murray's
Oh,
on
it does.
fire in that
Oh,
movie.
well, that's a
he
good-
actually
good
was
shout.
supposed to have a smaller part in the film, but they liked him so much
Did they?
that they kept bringing him back for things. So
I
he was
believe
only
that.
supposed to be on the golf course, like somebody that Michael Jordan plays golf with, but they expanded his part to like bring him into the third act of the film. Absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, Brian, we're not talking about the original Space Jam. What are we talking about?
Yeah, so that one obviously starred Michael Jordan. This is starring someone of comparable fame in basketball
Undoubtedly.
today, LeBron James. It also has Don Cheadle, Chris Davis, Sonequa Martin Green in live action roles, as well as Jeff Bergman, Eric Bausa, and Zendaya, who are playing the Looney Tunes voice characters. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know if we need to talk about the plot of this movie. It's live action and animation. It's going to be completely absurd and filled with references to IP that everyone's going to recognize. And it's a kid's movie. It may be fun. I'll probably watch it just because, like you guys, I grew up on Space Jam. And yeah, so that's Space Jam: A New Legacy. That'll.
Oh, the best part about this, other than that, this is going to be a total banger of a film. And
Let me just say, before you get into it, this will be in theaters and on HBO Max this
Yes.
Friday, day and date.
I'm seeing it. 100%.
There
I'm
it
watching
is.
this movie.
Boom.
I'll watch it too.
Yeah, we should
I
review
will
it.
inevitably watch it. We'll talk about it.
I'm so excited, but the one piece of news that you didn't cover is there's a video game tie-in. There is a beat 'em up, old school retro like Turtles in Time, like that cabinet you got downstairs, Chris. Retro like 16-bit, starring LeBron James and I believe the Bugs Bunny's girlfriend or the Babe Bunny.
Lola Bunny.
Lola Bunny.
Babe Bunny.
Hey,
Dude,
Bunny.
I mean, yes, that might as well call her that.
Yeah, it's a beat 'em up and it's free on Xbox Game
That's
Pass
cool.
starting. I believe it's out, and then it's free on the Microsoft Store starting the 15th, if I'm not mistaken.
So, okay, yeah. I thought it either came out last Friday or this Friday with the movie, but it'll be out soon either way.
Yeah, I could have sworn that it's already out. Like it came out. It's exclusive to Game Pass, like premium members. That Xbox Game Pass we talked about a few weeks ago. If you're not aware of that, it's Xbox like Netflix for games. You know, you get a bunch of games for one low cost. But it will be available for free on the Microsoft Store, I believe, corresponding with the release of the movie.
Sweet.
Awesome. So yeah, that's Space Jam: A New Legacy. That'll be in theaters and on HBO Max this Friday. A movie that
Oh boy, we saw the trailer for this one.
we did, and it was probably 2/3 of the movie that was actually shown in this trailer. This is a sequel to a movie that I haven't seen, in that even though I do like horror movies, these movies do not look great.
Sometimes there's a bridge too far.
Yeah, sometimes I just can't take that leap. But this is Escape Room Tournament of Champions. The description of this movie, which is everything you need to know about it. Survivors of previous escape rooms, this is a sequel, find themselves in new and increasingly elaborate game filled with deadly traps. So for those of you familiar with what an escape room is, this is just basically evil escape room that transcends into basically being caught up and murdered.
It reminds me of like Escape Room meets Saw. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, That's exactly what it is, actually.
Saw.
Yeah, it's basically Saw.
But with more fun and puzzles that are actually solvable, presumably, because more people seem to survive in this than in the Saw movies. But this is directed by Adam Robitel and written by Will Honley, Maria Melnick, Daniel Tuch, and Oren Uziel, and stars Taylor Russell and Logan Miller, who are reprising their roles from the first film, as well as India Moore, Holland Roden, Thomas Cockerell, and Carlito Olivero. I'm not doing a great job of selling this movie, but I imagine if you saw the first
let me
one,
pitch it to you.
you'll want to see it.
It's all the fun of an escape room without the participation.
And with more death.
With
Yeah,
people
more murder.
dying. But like, you know what you love about escape rooms? How you feel like you're in a mystery and you're actively involved in it? It's that, but minus the involvement. More death.
There's emotional involvement, hopefully, in some regard. But yeah, so
Have you guys ever
We'll
done
see.
an escape room?
I
Yeah,
have.
we've done. My wife and I have done many.
That's
yeah.
right. You guys had one that you invited me to. I'm probably bringing up an old wound that I couldn't make it to. Yeah, I did one. I did one with my fiance in like St. Pete or something, and it was interesting. It was fun. But like halfway through it, everybody we were doing it with was like, "Yeah, we're pretty much done with this escape room." Inevitably,
I
people
feel
are
like that's like half the group is always that way.
frustrated.
Yeah.
My recommendation for those that haven't done escape rooms is find a large group of people that you know instead of having to rely on strangers to help you get out of the escape room.
That
Only
sounds
because
like a nightmare.
Oh yeah, that sounds horrible.
if you go in with people that you know, typically you're able to complete the escape room.
Right.
But if you're partnered with, if your party isn't big enough and you're partnered with people you don't know if these people are like really into it as well, or if they're doing it for the first time, and that can always be a mess. But my wife and I have had good experiences with strangers in escape rooms. We did one escape room that was like, what was it? I think it was like 15 or to 20 people in one escape room. And luckily, this other group, which like we halved how many people were in the room, and they were the other 50%, they were also super into it. So like we were able to collaborate really well and like get through the whole thing. But yeah, highly recommend finding a group big enough on your own and then just going to the escape room yourselves.
It's like
You'll
an
have a
orgy.
better experience. It's like what?
An orgy.
It kind of, yeah.
Everybody's got to be into it
Yep, exactly.
and good at problem solving.
Puzzle orgy. A porgy.
Make sure you do research into your escape room to see if it's also a sexual palace or if it's somewhere where you might not leave
Sexual
alive.
phallus.
That would mean that would be me at the escape room, just being a total jackass. Like, you need to unlock the pirate ship.
Sir, this wasn't stated, but you do need to wear clothes to complete the escape room. Please.
Inevitably, I'm the jackass at the escape room. Is like, I got to take out my dick, and they're like, no, no, because Blackbeard. You look at Blackbeard. He's looking down. He wants to see my
And
dick.
there's a keyhole that's the exact size.
This was made for me. It's obvious.
We got another.
It's like I was
keyhole.
made to do this.
We got another guy with his dick stuck in the keyhole.
And that's the beginning of
Escape room.
Tournament
Tournament
of
of Champions.
Fight for New York.
So yeah, that'll be out this Friday for those of you who haven't listened to our raving review. So yeah, that'll be out this Friday. A couple other movies that are coming out. I've been wanting to talk about this series for a few weeks, but there's been so much coming out, but I finally wanted to talk about this. The third movie in the Fear Street trilogy will be coming to Netflix this Friday. So the summary of this is, in 1666, a colonial town is gripped by a witch hunt that has deadly consequences for centuries to come, while teenagers in 1994 try to put an end to their town's curse before it is too late. So this is directed by Lee Janiak, who also wrote it with Phil Graziadei. And it's based on a trilogy of books by R.L. Stine called the Fear Street trilogy. So I guess these are aimed at slightly older audiences than the Goosebumps books. I never read the Fear Street books, but growing up I read a bunch of the Goosebumps books. And originally these were meant to be released theatrically, which is really interesting because it would have
That
been
is
like
interesting.
once a month. But because of COVID, because of everything that happened, they eventually did it once a week on Netflix instead. But these movies are actually doing critically pretty well, and I've heard really great things from what I've read about them. I haven't checked them out yet, but the third one is coming out this Friday, and the first two are already on Netflix. So if this sounds at all interesting to you guys, fans of R.L. Stine,
And are these feature length?
these are three
Wow.
feature length. Yep.
Wow.
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 You know, I, as loyal listeners will know, Brian's the horror guy on the podcast. I'm not the biggest fan of horror. There are horror films that I do like a lot, but I'm usually not the first one of the three of us to like jump in, you know. But I have been hearing a lot of good things about the Fear Street movies that have been coming out, so I might have to check them out. Like for the last 3 weeks on Twitter, all these film pundits have just been like, Fear Street, Fear Street. So
yeah, the first one in particular apparently is very much in that same realm of Scream sort of movies, kind of meta aware of itself and talking about genres. So very much up my alley. And the third part will be on Netflix this Friday. All right, the last movie. I know Christian will be talking about the great Nicolas Cage in a little bit in our next segment, but he's got a new movie coming out called Pig that'll also be out this Friday, theatrically only. So this is directed by Michael Sarnowski from a story by him and Vanessa Block, and it is, written and directed by Michael Sarnowski. And the plot of this movie, very much John Wick, but maybe John Pig. Living alone in the Oregon wilderness, a truffle hunter returns to Portland to find the person who stole his beloved pig. So we covered Mandy at some point on the podcast. We are familiar with Nick Cage going balls to the walls crazy to either avenge or save his family. I'm 100% here for this.
He's going to save a pig, Brian.
Just the name and Nick Cage in it.
His pig.
We're going to find out, and we're going to also hunt down some truffles afterwards, hopefully. That will be delicious. But have you guys heard of this movie? Like, it could be bad. You know, it's Nick Cage. So, you know, I just want to say that. It's like, he's not always known for making the best decisions in terms of what he's in. But in my experience,
when you have to pay back the federal government a shit ton of money, you just say yes to a lot of different work that you might not necessarily think is good. So,
and I get that, but I will say most things, even if the movies aren't great, he's usually doing something.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I hadn't heard of this movie up until we watched the trailer for the weekly upload. But I think John Wick with a pig is the perfect way to describe this film. And while based on the trailer, I don't think it's going to be as crazy or psychedelic as Mandy.
Yeah.
I still think it'll be a fun experience because it is Nick Cage. He is a fucking crazy individual. It should be fun.
It's got a pretty peculiar tagline. It's we don't get a lot of things to really care about.
So care about a pig.
Wait, that's the tagline?
That's the tagline.
Interesting.
Strange. Yeah. Oh, and
he might be in love with this pig.
My other note is that his character's name, Rob.
Just Rob, no last name?
No last name.
Like Madonna.
Rob.
We don't need backstory. We just need to know his relationship with
He loves
pig.
the pig. The pig is taken. He's going to kill whoever he has to get the pig back.
Someone took my pig. That's my impression.
That was
Nicolas Cage looking for a pig.
Not bad.
That wasn't bad.
Not bad.
Thank you. So that's Pig that'll be in theaters this Friday. And I know it was long-winded, but that's it for the news this week. We got tons to watch.
Brian, thank you so much for that wacky news corner. Certainly super wacky this time. Really enjoyed it. Let's move right along. I'm going to pop open my second White Claw.
Crack it.
And we're going to crack open that White Claw. And we're going to head right into quick hits. Quick hits! Quick hits! Quick hits! Quick hits! Quick hits! Quick hits! Talks too long! A quick hits!
Keep it quick.
Quick hits is that special, wonderful, magical, sometimes sexual part of the show.
Ooh.
Where we talk about what we've been consuming, not like White Claws, like all the White Claws I'm drinking right now. This is not sponsored content. Maybe I'm drinking it truly. I don't know. Which one wants to buy Christian K here on the Pop-O-Holics? Just putting that offer out there. I am open to sponsor your hard seltzer. Anyway, it's what we're consuming in the world of pop culture. Chris, we're going to start with you. You've watched the film, the animated film Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie, Mugen Train, which is by Funimation. It's available on the Funimation app.
Yeah.
I was a fan of what I saw of the series. I think I saw like 18 episodes. I think that the first season is almost 24, something like that.
Yeah.
And
I think you guys have talked about this in the past a bit, right?
We have. I brought up Demon Slayer. You brought it up when it first started airing in the United States over a year ago. And then I ended up binge reading the manga last December. I read the entire thing, and then I started watching the anime, and I talked about it a little bit then. So, needless to say, I was looking forward to this. The title alone really is crazy. And Christian already said, but I'm going to say it again. Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie, Mugen Train. What a title.
Two sets of colons in that
Two
title.
sets of colons in
Impressive.
that title. It is impressive.
They
But
double coloned it.
It's quadruple
We got to
colon.
give this title a colonoscopy.
he needs this title needs a
He's getting checked
colonoscopy.
out. And Chris, luckily, is capable of
And
performing
now I'm
them
a pseudo doctor. So, you know. Yeah, let's talk about the movie. So,
Let's not.
For those that don't know, for those that don't know, Demon Slayer is an anime and manga about a teenage boy, Tanjiro Kamado, and his sister, Nezuko.
Nezuko.
And Tanjiro has his basically entire family murdered by demons at the beginning of the series, and they end up turning his sister into a demon, and the whole narrative is based on him going out and joining the Demon Slayers and trying to find a cure for his sister, basically. And Mugen Train, interestingly, it's different than most shonen anime films in that this is actually a canonical continuation of the anime. So if you want to go into season 2 of Demon Slayer, you have to see Mugen Train to understand what's going on.
Hop on the Mugen train.
You got to hop on that Mugen Train. But it's pretty crazy the journey that this film has had, because this movie is now the highest grossing film in Japanese history. It has made $500 million
Holy
in
shit.
Japan, which is about $200 million more than the last highest grossing film, Spirited Away, made in the early 2000s. So Spirited Away hung on to that title for a very, very long time in Japan until this film came around. And while that is super impressive, I don't feel as though that Mugen Train is necessarily worthy of such an achievement, especially when you compare it to an animated film like Spirited Away. But I do have to give this movie props in that Studio Ufotable, who's also responsible for directing the anime, and Christian can attest to this, they are magnificent.
Like world class.
Absolutely, world class. And it's just more of that in Mugen Train. Like, this anime has some of the most beautiful fight choreography. Even the sequences where they're like walking through landscapes are just fucking gorgeous. So if you've seen the anime and you are a fan of just beautiful animation, I think you will get a lot out of Mugen Train just looking at that. But on top of that, again, like I said, this is canonical material. So if you're a fan of the series, I recommend seeing this as well. I read the manga, so I already knew what was going to happen in the movie. It introduces a very critical character to Tanjiro's development, and there's some very tragic beats within the film. But yeah, it was a fun movie. It's still shocking that it holds that highest grossing film of all time in Japan, especially compared to Spirited Away.
Might have to do too with them. You know, I'm not sure exactly what the status of the pandemic. I know Japan's been one of the very, like, because their whole culture is very good at getting on board with all doing something in tandem. But I am interested because I am a very big fan of the anime. I've not read the manga, but the anime, and as listeners may know, it has to have a really great animation and really good story. And I believe there is no dub still for the show. Or
There is.
Oh, there is a dub.
Funimation has dubbed the entire first season.
Oh, good.
They've
Okay.
also dubbed the film.
Okay.
So you can watch it subbed or dubbed on the Funimation app, as Christian mentioned before. However you prefer. You watched it subbed, though, didn't you?
I did, of course. Now, would you recommend this? You know, I'm very interested. Is this a good entry point for people that haven't seen the series, or is it you have to know any of the context? It just kind of throws you right in.
So, being that it's canonical, that is a bit of a double-edged sword in that they do a little bit of brief introduction at the beginning of the film to get those who haven't seen the first season of the anime kind of caught up to at least what this world is about. But in all honesty, if you haven't seen the first season of Demon Slayer, I don't know if I could actually recommend going straight into Mugen Train, unless, like I said, you're just purely a fan of excellent animation, at which point, yeah, sure. If you're just here to appreciate the art, totally, you could see Mugen Train without seeing the first season. But yeah, I wouldn't wouldn't fully recommend it. I think it's worth it watching the first season. It's not very long, as Christian mentioned. It's like 24 episodes.
And that first episode is like an incredible short samurai film.
Absolutely.
I think that's probably your best. You're going to agree with me, even though I haven't seen the film. Your best onboarding to this series is just watching the first episode of the first season.
Because then you'll at least know like what Tanjiro's motivations are.
Yeah.
And that'll help you get through Mugen Train as a whole. I do have to say, the arc that they adapted into the film, I think it was a brilliant idea to do so because it's probably one of the shortest arcs in the manga. But the downside to that as well is that there were times in the film where I was watching it and I was like, this doesn't feel as much like a feature film, but it kind of feels more like just a longer episode.
Few episodes pushed together.
Right. Like they maybe pushed together like 5 episodes of the anime into one, I'm doing air quotes here, feature. So that would be a downside. But I mean, still, the animation is so gorgeous. Like, it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I need to finish up that first season. I got through quite a bit of it, so it's really great. I highly recommend, even Mugen Train as well as just watching the first season of Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba. That is on the Funimation app, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Demon Slayer is now on Netflix.
Is it?
I think so.
I haven't double-checked.
I know it was strictly on the Funimation app and Crunchyroll.
Was it on Hulu at one point
Was
too,
that
I think?
Crunchyroll? That's where I remember seeing it. Anyway, it's out there.
You can find it.
Catch
It's
it.
definitely out there. Catch it! Catch Demon Slayer.
It is
Kimetsu no Yaiba.
basically the hottest anime since like Naruto.
Yeah, I mean that's the main reason that I ended up reading the manga. Being an older anime fan, I find it hard to like jump into newer animation or even manga stories. It's a bit of a time devotion, but considering that Demon Slayer had already finished and it was like the highest selling manga of it was either 2019 or 2020, I can't remember at this point, but that's what spurred me to be like, I think this is something that I have to read. So yeah, it's super popular.
Very cool. So catch that on the Funimation app. That is Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie Mugen.
And the show is on Netflix, I confirmed.
Oh, yeah. In the U.S.
Brian,
probably.
the Pop-O-Holics fact guy.
For our international listeners, just keep in mind that's all like region-based, as is everything we say. I guess.
Yeah.
Cool. That's very awesome. Thanks, Chris. Brian, you watched the latest Steven Soderbergh movie starring Don Cheadle and Benicio del Toro, and it is available on HBO Max. Its name is No Sudden Move. What are your thoughts?
I had such a great time with this movie. I think I talked about this movie in the news at some point, but Steven Soderbergh, I have never seen a movie by him that I didn't enjoy watching, even though some are obviously better than others. Listeners will probably know him best from the Ocean's movies, very commercially successful. He's someone who's widely known throughout the industry, and he is one of these guys who is always pushing the envelope in terms of new ways to film. He shot a film on an iPhone 7. He did something called Mosaic that was app-based and like a choose-your-own-adventure thing. So he's very much not this guy who's leaning on the film normality of the past. He's always pushing the medium forward or trying to. With this movie, in that regard, most of the movie is shot in this like weird fisheye lens thing that was a little bit uncomfortable at times, even on my TV, to where you would have distortion on the edge of the screen sometimes where characters were standing, like characters who you know. So it is a little bit visually it's kind of strange. I feel like it could take people out of it if you're not used to this sort of thing.
I think I've only seen I think Into the Void uses, a lot of warped lenses like that.
And I may be describing it incorrectly, but yeah, there's definitely something that
fisheye would be like a ultra wide, where it's so thick that the people start to
like
smear
bending.
and bend
that's
at the
exactly
edge
it.
of the screen.
Yeah. So, as you said, this stars Don Cheadle and Benicio del Toro are the two main leads, but you also have David Harbour, John Hamm, Amy Seimetz, Brendan Fraser, Kieran Culkin, and others. It's just a ridiculous all-star cast, and everyone is excellent in it. It's set in the 50s. It's kind of a gangster picture. These Benicio del Toro and Don Cheadle are two low-level gangsters who... It's the classic thing, like seemingly this is going to be our one big thing to get out of the game sort of thing.
One more job and then we'll be out for good.
Similar kind of thing. So they get caught up in this heist where they're basically tasked with guarding a family while something else happens. So they don't really know why they're doing what they're doing or even who's hired them. So a lot of the movie is us figuring out who knows what, who's playing who, and what the actual heist is about, what is trying to be stolen. I think I really like trying to figure things out throughout the course of the movie. It does a thing where we get a character introduced in the last third who very much data dumps kind of like the themes of the movie. I'm not going to say who it is. Because of who it is, I was kind of like, okay, like this guy as a cameo, which he's kind of become known for a little bit.
Is it Michael Caine?
It's not Michael Caine, but I would have appreciated that as well. But what Soderbergh does really well is create these really fun, and I didn't say, this movie is very funny. Even though it gets serious at times and can get a little bit intense, the characters are so funny and the dialogue is witty, and it all works really well in that regard. What he does great, though, is having this movie that is about these two guys getting caught up maybe in over their heads in this heist. But then you realize that the movie's actually much bigger. And even though it's like a small time thing that they're doing, the implications of what they're doing and how this has been done in the past really extends out to today. And so it's set in the 50s and has to do with a certain industry. And I don't want to say too much about it because I think it's really cool. And it's kind of like, oh, this is what the whole movie's been about.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, I would definitely recommend this one. I don't think it's my favorite of his movies, but it's so much fun. It's on HBO Max. Very easy sell for me.
Oh, awesome. No, I'm like even more hyped. Steven Soderbergh, obviously very, very prolific director. So already like, you're in good hands for just like an enjoyable movie.
Yeah.
But then to have Benicio del Toro, he bringing his A game, he bringing his
It's
Sicario.
been a minute since some new Benicio, I feel.
Oh God, Benicio, when he's good though,
oh my God.
he's magnetic.
He's very good.
There's a moment where he puts a blanket over a woman in this, and it's one of the funniest moments in the movie. And I'm not going to say anything more than that because I have no context, but it's just so silly. It's just like, okay, yeah, I'm totally
Puts
here
a
for
blanket over a woman. Brian, that sounds ridiculous.
it. Wacky.
Very cool. So that is No Sudden Move. Also, No Sudden Move, singular, which is interesting because normally the phrase is no sudden moves. So,
and I think it's intentional. I may be reading a little bit into it, but in terms of what the movie's ultimately about, I think, there's something to that title.
Yeah. No, I like that title. So it's available on HBO Max. Catch it. Brian gives it a huge recommend. Brian, me and you actually just got back from the theater. We thought since you were in town, we have our local art house theater opened up, the Enzian in Orlando. We went there and we saw Band of Outsiders, also known as A Band Apart. And first off, what a delightful, it's been a while since I've been up to the Enzian, and this is a shameless plug for Orlando entertainment, but it's a great date spot. It's a great spot for film, food, and friends, as they say.
That's literally their tagline. Yeah.
So their tagline, but they do a lot of, like, they do theater in the park, they do events, they have a little restaurant, little bar outside, and me and you caught this movie, and what'd you think of the experience, and then we'll go into the movie.
Yeah, so the Enzian, I will definitely be coming back. It's very much up my alley. When we pulled up, I was like, oh, this is just like someone's house. And it's like it's like a mansion that they've retrofitted to be a giant screening room with, like you said, a bar. And
it's been around for 39 years.
Yeah, nearly 40 years, I think they said. So it was really awesome. This is just very much up my alley. You have a kind of 10-minute talk about the movie beforehand, giving some context to what it inspired.
And specifically, the event that they do is they do a Saturday matinee classics. They kind of do these classic films in which either I guess the owner of it used to do the preamble, but they kind of try to theme, similar to the show, around what the month is, and they've been celebrating French cinema for Bastille Day.
Yep, exactly. So this is the 1964 film by Jean-Luc Godard, and they were specifically celebrating Anna Karenina, who's one of the lead actors in this movie, who passed away in 2019, I believe. So
just a quick Anna Karenina.
Oh, thank you, Anna Karenina, who's one of the leads in this movie. So yeah, in terms of the Enzian, I highly recommend it. I had a delicious black bean burger and mac and cheese that was really high quality for theater food, I must say.
They have a lot of great draft beers on tap, and they also just have wonderful food. The food is really good.
It was solid.
And it's really nice going, because obviously this was shot in 4:4, the square kind of format, right?
Right, yeah.
Old. This was a film from the 60s. And it's very subtle, and this is going to sound very like... this is a newbie thing for film going, but they moved the curtains appropriately, which is like a subtle but like
professional,
wonderful thing. Yeah,
they should do that.
How would you compare? Because you're more around the Tampa St. Pete area. How would you compare this to the Tampa theater, or some of the?
It's totally different. Yeah, I think this is much more like laid back in some sense.
Oh, really?
Because just the Tampa Theater is nearly 100 years old, so it's very
Prestigious, yeah.
prestigious. It's got beautiful architecture, but the seats. And to be fair, I guess the seats are probably comparable. There's no, you can't really eat there. But the screen, I think the screen at the Tampa is probably a bit bigger, but the sound was really good at the Enzian. And the Tampa Theater sound is not always incredible. So I think that's something that was noticeably maybe better. Even though the sound in this movie.
I mean, it's mono. It's not even, I don't even think it's stereo. So it's a very hard sell. But like getting that just right, which I can talk about in a little bit, is tricky. To say the least. But yeah, I saw another film there a few years ago, and it was a more modern foreign film, and the sound was really good. So the sound system is really good.
At the Enzian.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, but yeah, it just feels like very chill and the kind of thing that you don't get often. There's something in Tampa that I go to that's called Second Screen Cult Classics, that they are kind of a roaming screening thing that happens once a month. Since COVID has happened, they've done it less frequently. But I don't really have anything like this that's like pure independent that is only showing older movies, not first run stuff as much. Although I think the Enzian does show some first run stuff, or do they not?
I think they will for like Tarantino movies.
It's got to be an event.
It's very rare.
That. But I think they will do select first run stuff. But they do a lot of foreign and classic films.
But yeah, I think, like I said, I'll definitely be coming back for this. I always appreciate the opportunity to see movies that maybe aren't as available or you wouldn't get to see screening elsewhere. But with that being said, shout out to the Tampa Theater. Check that out as well. That's definitely a worthwhile trip if you're ever in the Tampa Bay area.
Yeah, I was so focused on the experience of being back at the Enzian that I haven't been to in a few years that I was just like, oh yeah, I need to come here more. This is just great. This is like just a film lover's kind of hangout. It was great seeing, especially a Saturday matinee, seeing all the older people, like the couples and stuff. And like, oh, these are all film nerds that, we're watching a Jean-Luc
Godard.
Film. It's pretty great. So the film itself, me and Brian had not seen. And I got to say, it was very enjoyable. We recently watched Alphaville. You had given us a copy of that to watch.
Which Anna Karina's also in.
Yeah. And I think I prefer that one. I think that one is more enjoyable for modern audiences because it is more sci-fi based. It's a little bit stranger, obviously. This one is very straightforward and is very much kind of... it's interesting because it seems like the way that... Because they were talking before the film, the way that they tried to like sell it was really weird because they were like saying it was like a whodunit, and it's very much not a whodunit. I mean, there's some mystery at the end because we were talking about what actually happens at the end. There's a little bit of that, but it's a very straightforward film about these two friends that are going to like an English poetry. They're French.
It's a love triangle movie that's framed around like a potential heist or crime.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
And it's very strange and very of its time. I will say the thing that's modern about it is the filmmaking style. There's a lot of really cool modern shots. There's a lot of playing with the fourth wall. Jean-Luc Godard is narrating it. Yep. And he is actually like, he'll comment on something about how the film should be kind of better in a way, which is very interesting. And
there's a great moment where he's like, at this moment we would tell you the character's motivations, and then there's a pause and he's like, but we'll let the images speak for themselves, and the movie just continues.
We want to show you where our characters are at, but we should let the movie speak for itself. And it shoots one of my favorite shots, which makes sense because it's like he's like literally referencing the shot where I think he like knows he nailed it. And they're in the car, and it's from the hood going in, and it's Anna Karina's character in the back middle, and then it's our two male characters up front, and the wipers are going in between both of them.
So good.
And some of that is so great, but it's very of its time when it comes to how kind of Anna Karina's character is treated. But
sexual politics.
The sexual politics are not great, but I think it probably was progressive for its time because she has a lot of agency,
right.
But she also is treated as like they're constantly talking about her breast and her legs, and it's very French romantic stuff. But interesting, and there's a lot of funny moments. Especially with the narration playing with the fourth wall and stuff. Feels really cool.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. There's, to your point about it not aging well, aside from the way the men talk about her, she talks about the men at some point, basically says like women view men this way as well, and it's clearly like a man who's written this dialogue, so that is what it is. But there's a gag. It's played as a joke where they slip something into her drink, like they pour alcohol
Schnapps.
into her.
It's schnapps.
They pour schnapps into her Coke, and it's like a gag that's played. So yeah, that clearly.
But she kind of, it's interesting because it's not played for, she gets taken advantage of at that point. I think she does end up actually that night sleeping with one of the, so that does happen, but there's like this awakening she has because of it. And it's almost like she goes around this bar area and uses her sexuality and like is confident. Like there's like, it's very strange where it is still kind of, I don't want to say progressive, but it is, I think, for the time, which is weird to like label in a moment where a female character has agency and then also it being associated with her being kind of drugged, which is really, she got a shot of schnapps. So it's not like a GHB or anything like that.
Well, true. It leads into one of my favorite scenes in the movie, which is a dance scene that apparently
inspired Tarantino's Pulp Fiction dance scene.
Yes,
Cool.
and the dance scene was so much fun, and we get actual internal dialogue, internal monologue-ish from Godard talking about what each of them is thinking in the moment, and it just plays so well. He's doing a lot of interesting stuff with sound, coming in and out
a lot of
too.
bold decisions where like they'll be dancing and there's this banging, track from the 60s playing. I actually think it's like a 50s swing song or something. And he'll just cuts out completely and he narrates a little bit while our characters are dancing and it cuts back in and that repeats. And that scene kind of points out what I'll lastly say is just something that we'll be talking about when we go to Wednesday's main topic episode, which is, man, I really appreciate when we can just sit and watch great actors act and live and exist. And that's the strength of this movie and many movies of this generation, which is that dance scene is a singular shot and it's like 4 minutes long. It's got these weird audio things. It's not like editing isn't used in some cool way, in some interesting, really innovative ways, especially for the time. But I really just kind of miss that in a lot of cinema. And I know it's a very basic ass, yuppie film lover's perspective on the state of modern cinema, but it's always great going back to these classics and being like, watching these characters. There's one moment where they make a joke about a moment of silence.
Oh, it's just right before the dance scene.
It's right before the dance scene, and it's like the characters are talking themselves, and they're like, you can't appreciate a moment of silence. A minute of silence is longer than you can ever imagine. And then all the cafe audio of all the people talking cuts out, their audio cuts out, and they just stare at each other. And it's them dealing with the silence for a minute. And
I think we only got, I was counting, I think we only got to 40, 45 before a character breaks in and says, all right, enough of that.
And all the audio comes back in. It's very, very, very cool. Also starts with, I said lastly, but I'll lastly say, starts with the most Tarantino opening, where it's like Tarantino was like, what if we did that throughout the whole movie? It starts with this like cutting between all the love triangle, the two male leads and Anna Karina's character, and
flashing between faces, face.
Super like 90s indie cinema feeling. And it's so cool to see the roots of that back there. And, Tarantino was like, I'm going to have that fucking energy for the whole film. That's what I'm going to do.
And so Tarantino named his production company after this movie,
Right.
A Band Apart, which is a play on how it's pronounced in French. A Bon Apart, I believe.
Yeah. But there is a lot of like clear direction throughout this whole thing. And it does feel very, you were saying something about the pacing, and it's just kind of I think it's the labor of the plot. It's like you could sum up the plot within a couple sentences, right? There's a love triangle and there's a supposed heist that's going to happen. And the heist is very basic.
Oh, yeah. Very basic, yeah.
So I give it a recommend, though. I would probably recommend the other Godard film over that.
Yeah, Alphaville.
Alphaville.
And I think to your point about that, so Chris and I watched Breathless, and this feels more in that realm of his style of movie where it's very French, even though they do reference things like Indianapolis, the race, which coming off of Fast and Furious
There's a lot of
month,
American reference. There's a lot of international references.
pop cultural. There definitely are. But yeah, we got some drifting in this, like light drifting that I wasn't expecting in this movie coming off
Drift
of
King.
Fast and Furious, because this guy like has dreams of being a racer at some point. But yeah, I mean, these sorts of movies, I probably would recommend Alphaville prior, just because I think Alphaville is very much speaking to America in a direct way that this movie isn't, even though there is a lot of references. Alphaville is a sci-fi, but the main character is someone who has ties to the U.S. I don't want to say too much about it, but yeah, I had a lot of fun with this movie, and even with the stuff that didn't age as well, there's still stuff that, like you're saying, Christian, feels fresh in terms of cinema language, and like most people just aren't making movies like this.
And if you want to like see some inspiration for a lot of Coen brothers and Tarantino, I think there's a lot of those roots here. So for that, it was very enjoyable. Also, my chicken salad croissant sandwich was aces. The French fries were. I almost didn't order them. I almost didn't order the French fries.
But it's a French movie, so
I said, let's go with French fries. Waitress was very nice. It was a great time. So that is Band of Outsiders, also a band apart, as the French title is. And we saw that. We watched the Criterion Collection copy, I believe.
Yep.
And it is available within that. So probably on the Criterion. They have a streaming service, right?
They do.
Criterion Channel, I believe it's called.
Cool.
Yeah.
We're running long, so I'll go through this real quick. I'll cut one of mine. But I watched Adaptation finally. This is a movie that I've been wanting to see forever. Friend of the show, Marcus Griggs, has always recommended it. I believe it's one of his favorites, if I'm remembering correctly. And also guest and friend of the show, Nick Hishma, good friends of ours, had always recommended this movie, always thought it's great. And I was so close to them talking about it that I always was trying to put it off. I love me some Nick Cage. So this is Charlie Kaufman, who's known for his art house films that have been very, very, very popular. Let me just double check because I want to get these credits right.
He wrote Being John Malkovich, I believe.
Yeah, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Anomalisa, and I'm Thinking of Ending Things, which just premiered on Netflix. So this guy is really like out there in his own head. Synecdoche, New York, if I'm not mistaken.
Which I love, but is a real like hit or miss movie in my experience with people.
But this is the cool Charlie Kaufman, where he has some directing help with Spike Jonze.
Yes, exactly.
He's known for lots of great movies that Spike Jonze has done, including one of my favorites. He did Her, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So a lot of talent here, and it stars Nicolas Cage, Meryl Streep, Chris Cooper, who's the actor I've seen here and there, but I really think this has to be one of his best performances ever. He's so great. Tilda Swinton, Ron Livingston, who you'll know from Office Space.
Oh, yeah.
He's got a side character, but just a lot of characters, a lot of great actors popping up. And this is, if you are just slightly a film nerd, this is the best movie ever. It's so good because essentially, I don't want to give too much of it away, but it has a lot to do with screenwriting. And obviously it's called adaptation, but it has to do with adapting a film. And it just does the most cool mechanics within that story. Because essentially we're following, I'll give the basic premise away. We're following Charlie Kaufman. You find this out like immediately. Charlie Kaufman is portrayed by Nicolas Cage. And he's asked to adapt this book, which was based on a New Yorker piece, which is kind of this beautiful little thing, and it's actually based on a real book called The Orchid Thief by Susan Orlean, and it's a very like quaint book about obsession over flowers. And there's not really a great structure to make it a movie. It is very much in and of itself a piece that kind of leaves the reader lingering. So it really can't, if you are adapting it, take the book and make it that interesting of a movie potentially, right? That you could at least sell, to Hollywood. So the movie as Charlie Kaufman's character is trying to figure out how to adapt it, we are cutting between that and the adapted version of that movie is happening, and eventually our two worlds like collide, basically. So very great. The dude who played Stryker, I forget his name, but he plays like a screenwriting teacher.
Stryker in X-Men 2, right? X2.
Yeah, that's what he's talking about.
Stryker, Brian Cox, as everybody knows. Who I've seen in a couple of things, but really this is the best I've ever seen him. It's so awesome. He plays this screenwriting teacher. Charlie Kaufman has created like a twin brother that he has to deal with, which is two Nicolas Cages. So you're getting a movie with two Nicolas Cages for the price of one. Such an easy recommend.
And this is like, just to be clear, this is Superman levels of it. He's a totally different person. Like seemingly just putting glasses on. It's not that, but Nick Cage sells it so well that these people are fully embodied and different characters. And
it works. And there's just a fun little nod that everybody who's seen the movie knows of. But like the movie just takes on this new form, and it's kind of a Ouroboros, as it were, of like it eats its own tail in a way that is so interesting. And so for like, if you're just a fan of like deconstruction, obviously if you're listening to this podcast, you like film criticism. Like if you're really in the weeds on that, it's literally just made for that. It's cat's meow. I'm not sure a general audience, like if I showed this to my mom, I think she would enjoy parts of it, but I think the overall wouldn't land as hard. I think it would be maybe a little confusing, but I think it overall works. I am interested. I actually might recommend this to my parents just to see how they'd view it. Have you seen this, Chris? Have you seen Adaptation?
So like you, and like the two friends of ours that really enjoyed this movie in college, I was super close to it and never watched the whole thing, but I have seen like a half hour's worth of the film just hanging out with them. But I got up to leave at one point. So I still need to watch this whole thing. But what I do remember Nick Cage having a twin in the film. And yeah, I need to watch the whole movie.
Yeah, for my money, not to like make too many comparisons, but just to maybe describe the type of film I love. This is probably my favorite Charlie Kaufman movie because I don't love Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind as much as I like Kaufman, as much as I like Jim Carrey. That manic pixie dream girl thing just isn't. I've never really been into those types of stories. This for me is way more of what I like from him, and it's top tier Nick Cage for sure,
no doubt.
And it's top tier. Yo, Meryl Streep in this film,
amazing.
Give me more. Give me more Meryl Streep.
And it's stuff you don't always see her doing, I think.
I would agree, and I've recently fallen in love with a lot of older Meryl Streep films, but she's aces.
And just Meryl Streep herself.
And just Meryl Streep in general.
Yeah.
This performance is timeless. Meryl Streep is timeless.
Underappreciated actress, Meryl Streep.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
We're saying a lot of
Unknown.
stuff that has been said. But that's Adaptation. It's actually streaming on Amazon Prime now. So check it before it leaves that service because I think it's definitely, if you're a fan of this podcast, definitely up your alley. So that'll do it for Quick Hits. Chris, let's close out the show. I know we're running long. We're just so happy to see each other. Happy to be looking each other right in our real eyeballs. It's so nice. Let's close this out so we can get to our Black Widow recording, which the listeners will on Wednesday. Let's go into community feedback.
It's time for community feedback. Sometimes there is a bore, but mostly community feedback. Pop-O-Holicscast@gmail.com. Rate 5 stars on Apple Podcasts.
Welcome back to the Pop-O-Holics community feedback section, loyal listeners. No poll this week, but we are going to quickly promote our Throwback Thursday episode. Over our hiatus, we did still release our Throwback Thursday episode over on our YouTube channel, and that was the second part to our kind of brand new discussion in which Christian and Brian and Christian's brother Bobby kind of broke down their discography and talk about some of the issues surrounding Jesse Lacey, kind of more recently in his career. But this week on our Throwback Thursday episode, we are breaking into our celebration of Jordan Peele. You know, a couple years ago, we had a whole month dedicated to Jordan Peele when Us was released in theaters. And in this particular episode, we are talking about Keanu, which is a very funny movie, especially if you've seen John Wick or if you're a fan of Jordan Peele and Keegan-Michael Key. I highly recommend going and listening to our discussion and watching Keanu as a film if you haven't seen it yet. But yeah, Thursday we're going to be dropping that. And Christian, this is going to be a tight one. That's it for community feedback section. Where can our loyal listeners find us online?
They can find us. There's a link in the show note. We have one link, and it links you everywhere. It's a tree of links, as it were.
A link tree.
All over to social media. We do put up YouTube videos. We usually put part of this episode on YouTube as well. We skipped this week, and obviously we were on hiatus last week. But you can find updates there. We do clips and stuff. You can also find us on the social medias. Follow us wherever you'd like. We are on TikTok. We do post some of our videos on TikTok. You don't have to follow that, I don't think. I'm still not sure how it works. I think it just shows it to random people, so maybe you found us from TikTok. If so, get at us. And if you want to get at us, I was about to give my personal email.
Yell at Christian.
Yeah, please do not email me personally. Pop-O-Holicscast@gmail.com is where you can email the collective of us. And we will respond to you. We'd love to hear from our audience. We read every single email that's sent. Also, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, rate us 5 stars or rate us 5 stars on any platform you're on. If you leave a review, we will read it aloud in this part of the show. Really helps out the computers to recommend us to other people. So we really appreciate that. But that'll do it. Chris, what do we got coming up on our main topic episode?
Christian, on our main topic episode, we're going to be talking about the new Marvel Studios released Black Widow.
Black Widow! I'm surprised they didn't have like I miss tie-in songs. Like, give me Nickelback's
Oh, I know.
Black Widow.
Wait,
You
are you
don't get a
telling
lot
me
of
you
those
don't
anymore.
like slowed down versions of songs from the 90s?
Rock songs specifically?
I sure hope you do. Sure hope you do. All that and more on the next episode of...